Welcome to La Taverna Friuli Wines, the definitive podcast on wines from Friuli, Venezia Giulia. I'm your host, Wayne Young. Hey, Friuli wine fans, it's Wayne Young, La Taverna Friuli Wines. How's everybody doing these days? Revving up for Christmas, just past Thanksgiving. Do you have any Italian wine, any Friulian wine with your Thanksgiving meal? A lot of people tend to gravitate towards Pinot Noir, maybe a little bit of Beaujolais, some Oaky Chardonnay. Anything from Italy on the table with your Thanksgiving bird? Anyway, got a second in a series of talks with commercial people from abroad, outside of Friuli. The first was a couple of weeks ago with Bobby Stuckey from Colorado. Great fan of Friulian wine. And today I have Angelo Turi. I met Angelo at Ronchi di Cialla earlier this year. Wanted to talk to him about his role of promoting Friulian wine in London and bringing influential Londoners to Friuli, Venezia Giulia to show them the greatness of what we have here. So this is a telephone interview that I had with Angelo early in the morning. You'll hear some minor audio problems when it comes to our WhatsApp connection, but overall I think it was a really interesting conversation. Some really interesting points brought up by Angelo, especially talking about simplifying and educating, but I'm going to leave that up to the rest of the podcast. There's also some big news. I used to always point everyone towards my Instagram page at Wayne Grape, but my good friend Ben Little has advised me wisely to create a specific page for La Taverna. So on Instagram, now the podcast has its own dedicated page. So if you follow me, Wayne Grape, you want to pop on over to La_Taverna_podcast on Instagram, and this way you'll get a lot of notifications on there. Obviously, we're transitioning over. Wayne Grape, of course, will still exist, so if you follow me there, but if you do follow me on Wayne Grape, you do see that there's a number of different things going on there, from cat pictures to car pictures to wine tastings and the podcast. So I will still be promoting on my page, but all of the information that you're looking for about the podcast will be available at La_Taverna_podcast on Instagram. Without any further ado, let's go right into this great conversation with Angelo Turi.
Hello.
Good morning, Angelo.
Good morning. Good morning.
How you doing? We both have our sexy morning voice on.
Indeed. Okay.
So let's sort of start off with a little bit of background on you. You are from Ostuni.
Oh yes. You have a good memory.
I just looked at your Facebook profile.
Fair enough. Yes, I come from Ostuni, which is one of the most visited places in Puglia. So one of the trendiest places in a trendy region. And I've seen my region becoming popular during the course of the past 20 years. And as soon as I visited Friuli for the first time, I think it was 2018, not too long ago in the end. And the British man had to bring me there for the first time.
Okay. So you were brought to Friuli by a British man.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And that's how much Italians know about certain places in Italy, not just Friuli. But of course, the position doesn't help, let's say, because you have to want to go to Friuli because it's not in the middle of the big, let's say, ways of communication in Italy between north and south, for instance.
Right. It's not sort of, if Friuli was like where Bologna was, I think it would be a lot more
Indeed.
popular. Yeah, people running between Venice and Florence would stop in Friuli, but it's not. You have to go beyond.
Yes. And among my friends in Puglia, there is no one who has been to Friuli once.
Wow.
And I'm trying to work on that.
So what brought, so before we get into how you got to Friuli, how did you get to London?
Oh, fair enough. Yes, I've been my career between wine and travel. And the last job I've had in Italy was wine tourism manager for a winery in Brindisi down in Puglia.
Okay.
I spent 2 years conducting visits to the winery there and being a sort of brand ambassador for them in trade shows and things like that. And after 2 years, I wanted a change of role. We parted ways, and I thought I was gonna move to Milan because I've been living in so many cities in Italy, but never in Milan, oddly.
Okay.
And I thought this is the time for Milan. But then I came across a job vacancy on LinkedIn, and it was in London. But I applied anyway, even if I didn't have any intention of moving to London. But well, I'm more adventurous, let's say, when it comes to moving.
Right.
I've lived in 10 different cities, so I'm rarely scared of moving.
Good. Which
Especially
I think is rare for Italians, to be honest with you.
Yes and no, let's say. Yes, we don't really like change. Let's put it
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
when was that? When did you pick up that LinkedIn ad
It
and decide
was
London was for you?
February 2017.
Okay. So a while back. We're not talking about, last year. We're talking, you've been there for quite a while.
6 years now. I've been, I'm a British citizen from a week.
Congratulations. Was that a difficult
Thank you.
process?
Not too much. Not too much, to be honest.
Okay. So so your role in the world of wine. So you said you worked in wine tourism in Puglia, in Brindisi.
Yes.
And then you made this progression into London. So that was sort of this next step in yours. So is it your own sort of consulting company in London that you run right now, or do you have like a work contract? You'd work for someone else?
No, we're still missing a couple of steps.
Okay.
I'll be quick.
No, 2 steps back. That's fine. That's fine. We have time.
I moved to London to join a wine tour operator, let's put it like that.
Okay.
The company specializes on food and wine tours in Italy, but not only that, let's say Southern Europe. And basically, they were looking exactly for me because I had exactly the same experience, but on the other side of the fence. I was welcoming groups to the winery in Puglia, and now I was gonna organize wine tour and bring people along because I was working also as a tour host with them.
Okay.
It was a fantastic job, let me tell you. And during those 3 years, that's how I discovered Friuli. The company is owned by this British man, William Goodacre, whose first experience abroad, age 17, was in Corno di Rosasso.
No, where I am sitting in this very moment. That's fantastic.
The world is a small place. Yes, he went, did an internship for Collavini.
Okay.
And so he's still very much connected and fond of them. And he brought me there to discover the region before conducting a tour of British travelers. And, I discovered unknown, beautiful places. I already knew some of the wines, some. This is going to be a theme on which we may come back later on because there's a lot of variety.
Yeah.
Which, in a very Italian way, let's put it like that, it's at the same time a strength and a weakness
Okay.
because it doesn't help with trade.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll definitely get back to that.
So I discovered even more excellent wines. The thing I always say about Friuli when it comes to travel there or about the wines is that the average quality is what surprises me the most. You really have to engage to make a bad wine there, especially if it's a white. But even with reds, I can find more and more examples of excellent wines.
Okay.
So at the moment, that job finished during the pandemic, unfortunately. And at the moment, I got two roles, both part-time. I work for Promotorismo FVG, the
Okay.
tourist board, as
Fantastic.
their account manager in London. And on top of that, I work in a premium wine shop in Mayfair, whose name is Hedonism Wines.
Oh, I've
And
been to
it's
Hedonism. That place is amazing.
It is indeed.
Oh my God. I can't remember the name of the wine, the California winery. There's one room completely dedicated to that with like
Sine qua non.
Yeah, sine qua non, esatto. With all the hands holding the bottles and stuff. It's fantastic.
Indeed.
And the giant vertical of Ikem downstairs. Oh yeah, I know Hedonism well.
Yes, it's a privilege. Let me tell you, it's a privilege to work for them.
Place. Fantastic.
We are
place.
surrounded by bottles that you can usually find just on the books.
Exactly.
And we have them all.
That's amazing. It's amazing. It's an amazing shop. If anybody's listening in London and have not been to Hedonism, you must go. It really is something special.
And I'm proud of trying to bring a bit of Friuli there to promote Friuli among my colleagues, among the customers, of course. But I think that it is very important to work on the profession, on the people in wine, with the wine professional.
Okay.
Especially when they are in touch with customers. Because, and I can see that while I'm on the floor in the shop, we are in a position in which we can address people's likes or trends, let's say, at least try to address.
What do you mean by address?
By suggesting a particular bottle.
Okay.
Of course, the choice comes always down to the customer. Whether that happens, whether you're in a restaurant and you are a sommelier or in a shop. But there are so many people that come into the shop without having a clue of what they want. Usually it's people that don't really drink too much wine, or usually they don't know much about wine.
Okay.
It can be intimidating. That's the only thing I don't like about the wine industry, that we are perceived as a bit intimidating by people who are not in the industry.
It's true. And in fact, I work really, really hard, at least in my little way, to try and make wine as unintimidating as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think as wine professionals, it is our duty to make people closer to wine, not bounce them.
Exactly. To not intimidate them more by sort of giving them all of this jargon and complications, and sort of making
and not be shy, dude.
Exactly. So that's really, fantastic position that you have there, because you are able to sort of guide people. I guess that's what you meant by address, is sort of guide them and say,
Yes,
have you ever tried a Friulano? Have you ever tried, a Ribolla Gialla or something like that? You have that ability to sort of move people in that direction, obviously, if that's what they're looking for.
exactly. Or if they are undecided, they just want a white wine with that price range, you can offer them anything. I
Sure.
can guide them immediately to the Italian section where the Friuli wines are. But I think that is even more valid in restaurants, especially fine dining ones, because I can see, especially Mayfair, there is probably the highest concentration of Michelin star restaurants, for sure in London, but probably in the UK.
Okay.
And those are places where the wine list carries something like 400, 500, sometimes more references. So do you think any customer who is ever going to read it all?
Never.
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 And those places thrive on regulars.
Okay.
Despite the crisis, there are people who can afford going out to the same Michelin star restaurant 4 or 5 times a week.
Wow. Good for
And
them.
good for them, yes.
Yeah.
And of course, they build a relationship with the sommelier, and they don't even care having a look at the wine list. The question will be, Angelo, what shall I drink tonight?
Right. Right.
So
So
if Angelo is fond of Friuli, that's where we come into play, let's say. The game is on.
yeah, I know that in what my experience as a sommelier and doing service, that was always the most fun that I could possibly have, when somebody would just hand me back the wine list and say, "Here's what we're eating tonight. You decide." And then you can sort of say, "Oh man, I want to," you want to blow their minds. You want to
Yeah.
bring them something different.
Yes.
You don't want to bring them like the usual bottle of, big label stuff, or, go for the high ticket wines just to sort of make your tip.
And a lot of people, of course, not everyone, but especially the wine lovers, they're always looking for the next big thing off the beaten path, the next niche.
Right.
Because we're all fed up with drinking Pinot Noir from Burgundy. It's fantastic. Fed up, maybe I'm exaggerating, but we all know Burgundy and the usual suspects.
Exactly.
But so let me try something new.
So
And
would you
the next,
consider Friulian wines sort of like niche wines?
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Niche as long as they are not, they don't come from international grape varieties. That's
Uh-huh.
the point. Because a Chardonnay from Friuli, and I found amazing examples, don't get me wrong. Um, it's always a Chardonnay, it's not niche,
Right.
but a Friulano is absolutely. A Pignolo is too much of a niche, but that's not the problem.
Yeah. So
So yes,
it's basically it all comes down to sort of hand selling these wines.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So people need to be guided.
Need to be guided because they don't have time to explore by themselves unless they are attending wine courses. But that's another niche again. How many people among all the wine consumers are so much into wine to attend a wine course, not to become a professional, but just to understand more about what they're drinking?
Mhm.
I see more and more people doing that, but I'm exposed to many wine lovers, to be honest.
Okay.
So I don't think I'm a good example, let's say. But you know, a lot of people just want to enjoy a bottle of wine without too much fuss.
Right.
So they, it's better if they got it. Also because usually when I come across this kind of people in my daily life or on the job, they will always approach me saying, I don't know anything about wine. And I always say, don't worry, it's fine. You don't
Exactly.
have to.
Yeah, exactly. We get, I get that a lot here too. I mean, you get people who, if you try and make them taste, even when I worked in the tasting room and you would bring out a bottle that cost like 35 euros or 50 euros,
Uh-huh.
they would sort of almost be intimidated just by the price. They were like, hey, I don't know enough about wine to enjoy this. And I'd be like, are you kidding? It's like, you know what you like. You would never say that about a pizza. If somebody offered you like $100 pizza, you wouldn't say, I don't know enough about pizza to eat this pizza. So
No, you touched a very good point, actually.
so I would just like to try it. Do you like it or you don't like it? I'm not telling you have to buy it if that's out of your price range, but give me an idea. If you don't like it, it doesn't matter how much it costs. It's not your style. So yeah, that's going back to that sort of intimidation factor, right?
Yes, there is, now that you make me think, there is this probably common conception that if you don't know about wine, you won't get 100% out of it. So it's wasted money if you're spending, I don't know, 100 euros on a bottle, regardless of your possibilities, because you will probably get, I don't know, 50% out of the pleasure. You got a mouth like we all do.
Exactly. We all have taste buds and a nose.
Yes, that's the point.
Yeah.
So coming back to what we were saying, definitely Friuli is a niche. We must be aware of that. And in my opinion, being aware of your place in the world is the first step.
Okay.
Understanding who you are, how people perceive yourself in terms of market, of course. Because starting from there, you can understand where you want to go. And how can you go there?
Right. What about compared to like some other Italian white wines? Let's stick with white wine for the moment, but we can expand into reds as well. But since Friuli is so known for its white wines, and there was a time when Friuli was sort of like at the forefront. It was the top rated region for
in the 80s.
white wines, the 80s, maybe even the 90s, right? Now, where does it sort of rank? And how did these other wines sort of come to the forefront, surpass Friuli in terms of sort of image and market?
Well,
what are the big
to be
white
honest,
wines in London right now from Italy?
Oh, I can tell you the only Italian wine who is into our top 20 bestsellers in the shop is Cervallo della Sala.
Wow. Okay.
But do you know it?
Sure.
Yeah, of course. You're a som.
I was anyway.
And it's getting more and more expensive. Probably too much, let's say, but all the wines are getting more expensive due to the usual suspects again.
Okay.
And then so that wine is Chardonnay and Grechetto made in Umbria.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna say that Umbria is more popular than Friuli. Not at all.
I would hope not.
No. But in that case, there is the Antinori family and their powerful marketing resources.
Right.
When it comes to Italian regions, I see there's a lot of popularity. Not a lot, but they're more popular than Friuli. The wines from Alto Adige, South Tyrol.
Okay.
And that's the most frustrating thing. Sometimes people mistake Friuli for Alto Adige. I don't know how it is that even possible, but it happens. And that's something we must absolutely rectify.
Right. I mean, I've heard people say before, "Oh, Friuli, you guys speak German up there, right?" It's like, nope, that's Alto Adige.
No.
Maybe it's just because the proximity to Austria, maybe.
Can be, yes. Or the Alps.
Or the Alps,
Of course, these two regions share something, but very little in the end. It's just a bit of geography, let's say.
Exactly. So what do you think that Alto Adige is doing right that Friuli isn't doing?
Huh, that's a very good question. I can see what I can tell you what I like about the promotion. They all move together, let's say. They
Uh-huh.
go they don't go with single consortios. They just promote the brand South Tyrol.
Okay.
The, the same
That's
brand,
important.
yes. The same brand is on the capsule of every bottle that comes on the market. There is some sort of brand uh, um, building a brand reputation and awareness
For the entire region.
for the entire region. The same brand is used not only on the wines, but also on every travel publication, let's say. It's the brand of the region. But in the end, it's not a region, but let's say the brand of an area.
Okay. Have there been any sort of specific maneuvers that they've done, maybe just in London or that you know of, marketing things or marketing pushes or something that have been particularly exemplary for you that have been effective?
Yes, but not anything that is different from what all the others do.
Okay.
Promotion on sellers in terms of tastings, master classes. That's something we do in London. I do as well for the Friuli. Um, One of the things on which personally I try to focus our budgets the most is to bring sommeliers to Friuli because, following up on what I was saying before, I think that if a sommelier from an important restaurant in London comes to Friuli, I'm sure about the outcome of his visit. I'm sure that within 3 days he's gonna be in love with the region, with the wines. So that's what I try to do as much as possible, picking, selecting sommeliers from the best restaurants in London and organize a wine tour for them, a quick one. Usually it's Monday to Wednesday. Within 3 days, I try to let them visit as many wineries as possible without cramming too much, of course. Because
Those tours can be
the
a
trip
little
must be
bit, yeah.
enjoyable. No, I don't want to turn it into a military march, but
Exactly.
I try to, of course, I change the wineries in every trip because, of course, I have to promote as much diversity as possible. And I see a lot of good feedback.
So you
And
literally see a difference right away when you
yes,
bring these people over. You immediately see sort of an impact on wines
impact.
being moved over there.
Oh yes, my one of the biggest satisfactions I've had is after the first trip I organized this kind of after the first of this kind of trips. More or less 1 month later, one of the Soms texted me. He was redoing his wine list in a Michelin star restaurant, and he put a Ribolla and a Schioppettino by the glass.
Fantastic. Ribolla and Schioppettino by the glass.
Yes. Both a wine in the a white and the red. And when it's by the glass, you are gonna sell volumes.
Yes. Yes, yes. That's where you sort of make your money, right? That's where you sort of make your volume. It's great to have a
Exactly.
placement on a great wine list, but if it's just on that, 400 label wine list, it's difficult to sort of guide someone into that 1 in 400 choice. But once
Indeed.
you only have, let's say, a dozen wine by the glass, if you're lucky,
Yes, yes.
and you're going to obviously sell a lot of that. So yeah, for me, that's a huge impact. And I would really love to hear. I mean, I don't know if you heard from them, like sort of the feedback from the people who they were selling those glasses to. What was sort of the public's reaction to that Ribolla and that Schioppettino?
No, I haven't heard, but I will. I will.
Let me
Now that,
know, because
yes.
I would love to hear sort of what they've been hearing from the people, whether the people have been like, wow, this shit's really good, or they're like, yeah, that's good, or if they come in the next time and say, hey, do you still have that Ribolla on the list, or if they want to move on to something different. I'm really curious as to sort of the lasting impact on consumers once they get their lips on a glass of Friuli and wine.
Well, what I can tell you is that we try to sell, I want to say a lot of Schioppettino, but in terms of volume is not a lot. But I can see a small trend in Schioppettino sales at the shop. And especially given that me and my colleagues like it, we do sell Schioppettino to the customers that are ready to try either something new, or they're sommelier, because of course also between our customers there are a lot of sommelier, and they're looking for niche varieties. And when people try Schioppettino, they usually come back for it.
Okay. So
Yes.
you're looking more to appeal to kind of like these so-called wine adventurers, the ones that are looking
Yes,
for something new.
indeed.
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay. But so you
Or
were, go ahead. I'm sorry.
somebody who was looking for good value for their money. And this, we can put this among the opportunities for Friuli, because the prices are, being a niche, prices are still affordable for everyone in
Th-
a wine world dominated
this is
by.
a great thing to hear, because very often what I hear, at least when I used to work in the market, and every once in a while I still hear, is that Friulian wines are too expensive. And
Oh,
I was like,
no,
no, that's not true.
no, it's more true the other way around.
Which is
Are too cheap too many times.
they're too cheap. Exactly. So do you
Yeah.
think that is maybe we're undervaluing ourselves over here, that we need to sort of believe a little bit more in what we're doing and charge a little bit more? Is that what you think?
Oh, that's definitely. Even as much as I wouldn't like to see prices soar, because I'm a buyer myself. but
Okay.
but yes, I think not all of the wines, of course, but many of the wines, many of the all of the excellence, they are worth more. And even more than price, I believe that, but that's not just about Friuli, that's Italy in general. We drink the wines when they are too young, especially the
Oh,
wines.
okay. Okay. So we could put this sort of in the strengths category, right? We have value for money, right? And
Yes.
we have sort of cachet of kind of like a niche type of thing for wine adventurers, right? And you say
And ageability of the
ageability is
wines.
a strength. So what are the weaknesses? Let's talk a little bit about the weaknesses of Friulian wine.
Awareness, for sure.
Awareness.
Yes.
So education, education, education.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And education done in the easiest way possible, because not, as I was saying, not everybody wants to attend a wine course.
Okay. So what would you recommend under education? How would you approach that?
Tastings.
Tastings, public
Yes.
tastings,
Yes.
or tastings just with sommeliers?
Every kind of, but as playful as possible, in my opinion,
As
because you
I
have to.
love that, as playful as possible. Very interesting. What else do you think? What else could we improve on? What are some other weaknesses that we have?
What I was saying at the beginning of this conversation, there is too much richness, which can backfire.
Too
How
much
many
richness in
different?
terms of different grape varieties and wines being offered?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. You put it beautifully. There are too many. Every winemaker I know in Friuli produces, at least on the hills, he produces Ribolla Gialla, Friulano, Pinot Grigio, usually 2 or 3 versions of Pinot Grigio, a white wine, a Ramato one, sometimes a Riserva one. Then there would be Pinot Bianco, one or more different blends of them. Let's say the usual blend with Ribolla Gialla, Friulano, and Malvasia. Oh, by the way, I was forgetting. Usually there will be a Malvasia 100%. Then there might be a Sauvignon, Chardonnay. What else? What else? And then all the reds. So without taking it too far, each time I see a wine portfolio of 15 different wines, sometimes 12 different varieties, is like, seriously? Because yes, there's a lot of richness. This is very common in Italy. This is not just Friuli. And you know what I've heard from, fortunately not during my tours, what I've heard about Friuli, from feedback from people who had been to Friuli on other educationals, let's say educational trips, is like sometimes we've been, they were talking about this problem of the richness, and they were saying sometimes we've been to a winery, we had tasted 10 wines who were absolutely dull and unremarkable. And then when we were all done with our judgments, they came up with the 11th bottle, which was amazing. And we were thinking, why the hell did you waste our time on those wines? You should have served these immediately.
Okay.
And I will get to my point now. Every winemaker knows in their heart what are they good about, what kind of variety is their jewel in the crown. They should focus on that.
Regardless of what it is, it doesn't necessarily need to be a native variety. It could be Pinot Bianco, it could be Chardonnay, but if that's their jewel in the crown, that's what they gotta do.
And I got a bit of, I'm closer to certain winemakers for life reason, let's say.
Okay.
And let's say I was talking to one that who is very successful with Pinot Grigio. And I told him, why don't you uproot all the other, almost all of the other varieties, simplify, Let's, people ask for your Pinot Grigio, you sell out every year. Why don't you plant more Pinot Grigio and you become strong on Pinot Grigio? And he will say, well, the market asks, my seller asks also for other varieties. And if I cannot let them down because they're scared of course, losing their
losing
market
a customer.
share.
Yeah, exactly.
Losing their customers, yes.
I think in the past there was that kind of that mentality where you could go in, whether it would be you or your sales agent, go into an account and say, hey, do you need a Pinot Grigio? I got a great Pinot Grigio. And they say, no, we have our Pinot Grigio. We got our by the glass. We don't need a Pinot. Okay, well, how about Friulano? We have a Friulano. You know what? I just bought a Tokai, so I don't need a Friulano. Sauvignon Blanc. Yeah, you know what? I do need a Sauvignon Blanc. So you constantly have an offer. Anytime anybody turns you down, nope, don't need that. I got this. I nope, don't need that. I got a Malvasia. Malvasia, can I taste it? Okay. So you always have something. So that's this mentality to always have like a backup.
Yes, you nailed it. Yes. Being the provider of everything wine, and I can see also a surge in the production of sparkling wine, which is not new, not just about Friuli. Everybody's producing bubbles, even in places that are not supposed to produce sparkling wines because of their climate. I can see sparkling wines made in Puglia all over Puglia. The climate shouldn't allow. But,
yeah, they're harvesting at the end of July.
Almost. No, I never heard of July, but beginning of August
for sure. Yeah.
Yes, to retain a little bit of acidity, but they sell, So everybody all over the world is producing sparkling. Prosecco has led the way. And so getting back to Friuli, I think winemaker at least slowly should take into consideration the possibility of reducing their portfolio and by focusing on the great varieties on which they are stronger, they're strongest.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good advice. I think that's really good advice. It's something that I've been saying for a long time. And I think there was a period when my attitude was sort of like, you have to sort of just pick a grape variety, kind of like Friulano or Rafosco, and just make those two, kind of Burgundy model, right? You got Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. But now I've changed
That's
my mind about that. I'm like, no, it should be whatever grape variety you do really well. It could be, if you're in Isonzo, Chardonnay is king. Make great Chardonnay and just make great Chardonnay.
yes.
If your terroir and Collio makes amazing Friulano, just make Friulano. Let the Chardonnay and the Sauvignon Blanc go. Forget about that. Don't worry about Merlot. Or maybe if you need red wine, just make one Merlot. But like really sort of concentrate all your effort in becoming that great producer of that great wine.
Indeed. It has to be said that having a variety of varieties helps bringing down the risks, because maybe one variety has not ripened very well 1 year. You can make up with other varieties
Or
or
trends or whatever, what's trendy.
trends, or maybe there is one variety which is early budding. You've had the spring frost, and by having other varieties who are late budding, nothing has been compromised, whereas you've lost all of that particular variety which was early budding. There are reasons why in Friuli there are so many great varieties, but we should simplify. I'm saying this because when it comes to richness, backfires when it comes to market your wines.
Okay.
Everything feels complicated for a customer. Wait a second. So this is the place of Bolla Gialla, but also Friulano. Oh, you make Chardonnay. Oh, you make also Sauvignon. Oh my God, what is this? No, it's a blend. Ah, okay, and that's another blend, and they come from the same appellation. So nothing helps the customer to understand what is in that bottle, what is Friuli about.
Okay. So if you were to sort of going back to these playful public events where people taste wine, would you sort of concentrate just on certain types of wine, or do you feel like offering the whole sort of gamut of Friulian wine is a little bit counterproductive?
I always concentrate on certain varieties. In my tasting, I rarely or almost never use blends. I use single variety wines to talk about the variety, talk about the terroir, the territory.
Interesting. Whereas there's quite a movement here to create these blends, which is part of the sort of the heritage of the territory.
It is.
And
It
say,
is.
this is a Friulian white wine, and it's not a Friulano, it's not a Chardonnay, it's a Friulian white wine that's made with a bunch of different varieties. Sort of like nobody asks what's in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, right? But everybody asks, what's
Well,
this white wine here? What's it made from?
Yes, yes. And it's a good example because, let's talk about Chardonnay du Pape Red. It's probably the appellation in which more varieties can go in, up to 14 different grape varieties, and nobody asks. We all know it's going to be a blend of Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, and some salt. But the point is, they've chosen one blend, one wine in which goes everything. Whereas how many different blends can you make within the usual Friuli appellation?
Yeah.
Basically
You can do anything,
anything.
anything.
So that's difficult when it comes to market those wines because people are confused. You must help the customer understand what's in that bottle because it's that they have the right to not to know.
Right. So you think it's easier for people to look at a bottle with a grape variety on the label and sort of get a better idea of what's inside?
Well, that's what France is doing. France has never done that. France has always been at the forefront of, let's say, if you don't know that Gevrey Chambertin is a Pinot Noir, it's not my fault. You're ignorant.
Okay. So they don't worry about that kind of stuff. It's not my problem.
They don't worry.
So, and
But
that's a very,
given
very sort of place-based marketing idea.
place-based,
It comes
yeah,
from here. It doesn't matter what's inside. It comes from here.
here, yes.
Can we
But
apply that to
the,
Friuli somehow?
it's too soon. That's the problem.
Uh-huh.
It's too soon because there is not enough reputation.
Okay.
We may, for sure, we may try. I think what I'm trying to say is that we have to simplify. There are several ways to do it, but we have to simplify for the customer.
Okay. So what are the several ways that we can
Unfortunately,
simplify? Run those down for me.
we could simplify by creating the disciplinaries regulation, the regulations of the several appellations we have. Let's say if we could state that Collio Bianco must be made with this variety and only these ones and this style, so that yes, you can change the percentage of each variety every year depending on your availability, but that's the way a bottle of Collio or any other appellation that was just an example must taste like.
Okay.
Just like, Chardonnay, and restrict the possibilities of what you can do under that appellation. That's what IGTs are for, to give you more freedom. Also, at the moment, I don't want to say anything wrong now, but from my recollection, all the orange wines that are produced in the Gorizia area, they usually don't fall under the Collio appellation, for instance. That's a pity.
Okay.
That's a pity.
So
Because those are very trendy.
You would prefer to fold those in to Collio?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Because it's a typicity. That's why we have appellations in Europe, to preserve typicity.
Okay.
The other way we could simplify is what you were saying, stating the grape variety on the label. Sometimes we already do that. And coming back to France, even France is doing that. They now can state the grape variety on the regional appellations. Let's say Bourgogne Rouge. Now you can see some certain labels with
Bourgogne Pinot Noir,
Rouge,
exactly.
Pinot Noir,
or Bourgogne Blanc, Chardonnay. Exactly.
Yes. And even in Bordeaux, the white Bordeaux, which is a thing. Everybody thinks red wine when it comes to Bordeaux, but 10% of the production is white, and they produce also serious wines.
Right.
Because, well, to be honest, they know how to make wine. So even if it's white, in the white Bordeaux appellation, you can write Sauvignon on the label, and Sauvignon is a variety that has traction at the moment, especially among at the lower end of the market, especially when it comes to supermarkets.
Okay.
That's why they've done it.
Yeah. So this way, when you're making volume, you can sort of latch on to that little piece of information that might hook someone who doesn't maybe know what white Bordeaux is all about.
Indeed, even the French,
Right.
Because they don't care. At the lower end of the market is there because they want to buy a bottle of wine which is reliable, with unfaulty, at less than 10 euros and still enjoyable. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's the vast majority of the market, let's say more than 80%. So we must never forget that the world drinks that wine, those wines. And
right. We can't ignore that market, right? I mean, as niche as we may want to be, we also have to sort of understand that there are people who just want to sort of grab a nice bottle of white wine and not spend too much money and enjoy what they have in the glass. So you can't ignore that market.
Oh, yes. And also from the point of view of a producer, that's where you make the money.
Of course.
Not with the high-end wines. Those are usually done at very small margin, if not a loss, because the cost of production is so high sometimes that I think Piccoli, I'm sure that is a trade-off for every producer.
Right. Right. So yeah, so maybe sort of concentrating on kind of a cash cow wine at a decent price, which you said we can do here in Friuli, and then
Yes,
sort of using your halo wine as we to to apply sort of an automotive term to wine, sort of your halo wine, your sort of exclusive wine, your top of the one to sort of
yes,
build a reputation for quality,
definitely.
working
And
from the top
especially at the
down.
lower end, we we must find ways to simplify, to let the customer understand what's in that bottle.
Yeah. Okay. So sort of summing up because we're coming up to almost an hour here. So we're saying, contact with people, education, informal tastings for the public are key to sort of getting more traction for Friuli wines. Um, we're also talking about, contact with sommeliers, so influencers. Are there any other
Yes.
influencers that are important apart from sommeliers? Is there like a social media aspect of that we could concentrate on, or is, sommeliers really still that powerful as far as influence is concerned?
Well, yes, definitely we cannot unthink of the social media, and not only the usual Instagram and Facebook, because the new generations they use TikTok, and
Right.
on TikTok everything is playful and as easy as it gets. Sometimes silly. I'm not gonna lie, but that's where they get all the information. Yeah, the past few days I've been to the World Travel Market, which is the one of the biggest trade shows when it comes to travel in London, and they were saying that the people aged between 18 and 24 years old, they get all the travel information from TikTok.
Jesus, really?
all forget websites, forget everything else. They
That's
follow
crazy.
some sort of influencer, and then they wanted to replicate almost everything that they say. So and they will usually get their information on the in the place. So as they're traveling, they will not even Google. They will look. They will search on TikTok top 5 restaurants in my area, and then follow the advice or whatever kind of videos they come across.
No kidding. Wow, that's amazing.
N- n-
Is that a powerful segment of the market? Is that a segment that you think is becoming more interested in wine? Because that's been one of the big debates recently where I was like, young people don't care about wine. They'd rather drink like, hard cider or seltzer or something like that. Do you think that they're sort of turning on to wine now a little bit?
No, no. The
No.
problem is exactly what you were saying. Young people, they're not coming anymore to wine. Usually, the wine industry historically has done nothing to entice these people into wine. And of course, it's alcohol, so we don't really want to or can attract people to alcohol. But let's say usually the wine industry has sat on a chair waiting for people to turn 30 and move from cider, beer, or cocktails into wine.
Uh-huh.
But that switch, all the data suggests that that switch is happening less and less.
Wow. And I think it just
Indeed.
came out some sort of statistic a couple of days ago or yesterday that global wine production this year is like at an all-time low as far as volume is concerned.
Oh, yes, but it has to be low. Apart from vintage variation, consumption is declining all over the world. So it's not that bad that the production is increasing as well, because everything everywhere is full of wine. The distributors are full, the restaurants are full, the producers have their wineries full of wine. We produce too much wine. We have to say that.
So you think that maybe less is better, sort of going
Yes,
less for volume and more for quality.
absolutely.
Okay.
There's too much wine, especially at the lower end of the market. It has become really hard to sell.
Do you think that there's the consumers in a place like London look at things like Collio or Colli Orientali and they make a difference between that and say Grave, for example, or Aquileia? Is that something that people notice on a bottle of wine from Friuli, or is the denomination, the appellation, not that important?
No, the appellation is important. The problem is that basically all of the appellations you mentioned are completely unknown in London. We have to say that.
So
Even
the amount of knowledge for Collio and Grave and Aquileia is exactly the same.
Yes, let's say Collio could be 1%, and the rest is 0%, but we're pretty much there.
Okay. So yeah, definitely.
Of course, I'm making the numbers up from my point of view. I don't have any data.
An idea of the proportion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to be done. Wow. Okay. I really appreciate your time this morning. I know that you're an hour earlier than me. So you really got up early for me. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
And when are you going to be in Friuli next? When are we going to be able to have a glass of wine together? January.
In January, I'm going to bring another group of sommeliers from London.
Well, let me know when you're here. Maybe we'll sit down again in January and talk about something.
I will, with a lot of pleasure. Thank you very much, Wayne.
Thank you very much.
It's been really fantastic.
No, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. It's been very, very enlightening. Thank you very much, Angelo.
Have a good day.
Have a great day. Thanks very much.